Nina, kahit sa hindi nasaka kasi Felix Guardian death. So it's been a while since I last spoke with you guys in this sort of way. Um, the people who are in my Discord server probably know what's been going on because I've been updating them. But for my general YouTube audience, they would not know of the, I guess, three major things that have happened recently in my life. I'm just gonna really quickly mention that if you hear some weird sounds in the background, it's the fridge and a fan. Okay, the first the first big thing that happened to me. Um, and no, this is not. Oh, I got Kokomi on my Europe server. Oh, I'm gonna be able to do Spiral Abyss. Not that I would do Spiral Abyss to begin with. My entire family moved out from the house that we were living in temporarily. I mean, the plan was to stay someplace temporarily while we got our old house renovated. And when I say renovated, I mean like completely broken down and put up a new structure, right? Um, how do I put this? It was not my father's choice to suddenly move out of nowhere. It was my mother who said, I'm getting sick from all of these cats. My sister over yonder is inviting us to rent at her place, which has an empty apartment in it. And she can take care of me when we move over there. And my father was like, are you serious? We would need to pay two sets of bills. And we still moved anyway. So it's been you can probably tell, right? The what you're hearing in the background, like the echoey stuff. Yeah, we've been in the apartment for about 2 months now. 2 months and about a week. I don't know. I really wasn't paying attention that hard. Um, but the reason we moved in the first place was because my mom developed a lump on her neck, and she was like, "It's definitely from these cats. I'm getting sick. We should move out, and then I'll get better." She did not get better because it wasn't the cat that was making her sick. The lump on her neck was actually stage 4 cancer. And unfortunately for her, it did not um, allow her to receive the necessary treatments for such a thing. And on July the 19th, she passed away. Um, she she had steadily declined after moving. Um, First, it was actually I didn't want to mention this because um, I I didn't want to concern people with it. One and two, I thought she would get better, and it would not have, and it wouldn't matter anyway. Later on down the line, in 2019, coming down to the end of 2019, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And the reason why I didn't say anything about it is because I am born female, which means that people who care about me might be concerned about my personal risk of getting such a thing, because if you guys didn't know, breast cancer is hereditary. And as far as my mom knows, No one else in her family has had breast cancer. Uh, I mean, what the time she lived in, I don't know about the medical records or whatever. I'm pretty sure at some point one of our ancestors must have had breast cancer or something. Um, she went through the chemotherapy, the radiation, the whole 9 yards, and the chemotherapy damaged her lungs and her knees. If she ever fell, she would not be able to stand up again. And on top of that, my mother was overweight. So um, climbing up the stairs to our old house would always leave her out of breath, and she could not really go anywhere without having someone there as a crutch, basically, um, to go anywhere really. Um, and we all thought that she didn't have breast cancer anymore. She went through the surgery. Um, Everything seemed fine. And then she developed a lump on her neck. And when she came over here, she went to the doctor, and the doctor told her that it was um, the cancer. It was stage 4 cancer 1 and 2. It was pressing on her jugular, which was which is the artery responsible for sending oxygen to your brain. So now she had to be very careful to bring up steps, and unfortunately, our new apartment has two sets of steps, rather steep ones, may I add. And every single time she had to traverse them, she would always have to call me to help her up the stairs. And at some point, she would just stop and have to sit there for like half a minute to get her breath back. And it devolved into um, her not being able to leave the house at all, and then her needing to lean on someone whenever she wanted to go use the toilet. And then the last stage of it was that she felt that she could not get up from the bed any longer. She It only happened once, by the way, before, you know, she said that I would have to bring her towels for her to urinate into. And then this was the most, just the idea of it was disgusting to me. She said that I would have to bring her a large bowl full of water so that she could defecate in it, and I would have to throw it into the toilet. Now, I don't have a job. I've never had a job ever since I left high school. My mom has always kind of like latched herself onto me, being like, um, you have to help me with this and you have to help me with that. And the more time I spent at home was the more dependent, I guess, she became. Um, and she said to me at one point that she was not pushing me to get a job because she knew of the issue with my feet. If I stand up for more than an hour, I start getting pain in my feet. If I stand up or start or walk or um, move around on my feet without getting a break for more than 2 hours, unfortunately for me, it feels like I'm walking on my bone entirely. I learned that the hard way, and that she also wasn't trying to push me to get a job because I don't do well with people. I freeze up really easily when talking to strangers. I It is actually kind of embarrassing. Um, so now uh, we're here in the apartment with just my dad, my younger sister, and I. And we're still paying two sets of bills. I asked my dad after my mom passed if he wanted me to continue pursuing a job because about a week before my mother started talking about moving, or discussing it with the family, she was like, I want you to get a job, and maybe if you move out of the house, you would get over your fear of people, stuff like that. Except that I don't think that's going to be an uh, something that would help me if I'm somewhere on the autism spectrum. Oh, by the way, did I mention that one of the obvious signs of being on the autism spectrum is a lack of empathy? Have you noticed the way I've been talking about this entire situation? It's been pretty much me complaining the entire time. I don't feel anything. So, I suppose I should give you guys a little bit of mm, the night she passed, because I have a lack of empathy, and I I remember that day a little too clearly. I might as well relate it to you guys so that you know you guys can know what it was like. Um, it was the day after she said to me that I would need to bring her towels for her to use the toilet in, and then I would have to wash it. By the way, those towels have been thrown away now because there was no way I was getting that smell out of them. Um, that day I was exhausted. Um, I had put some sleeping material in the hallway so that whenever she called me, um, I would be there to be able to answer her, right? Uh, because I didn't have a job, right? Well, rather, I started looking for one, and then she couldn't really move around all that much anymore. And my younger sister was like, I think you need to put off the job hunting thing and stay home with mom. So here I am again, jobless. Even my father said, no, you don't have to get a job. Although I have several reasons as to why I think he might have said this, but he's the breadwinner, right? He knows the financial situation. If we needed extra income, he would say something, right? Okay. But that's not the only reason. But I'm not talking about that. Remember when I said that my aunt was also renting very close by? We're the two of our apartments are literally separated by a wall and a platform outside. That's literally it. You go down one step and you go up the other step and you're in her apartment, right? So every morning she would come over to help my mom to cook a little bit, and then she would stay for about an hour talking to her and whatnot, and then she would go back, and then the rest of the day is basically just her calling me every 5 minutes or so, to the point where I actually had to start staying outside in the hallway on the computer so that I could hear her when she called, because her voice was starting to get weak because the whole growth on her jugular thing and not being able to get that much oxygen to her brain. And on top of that, she also had a pulmonary embolism in her lungs for a little bit. But that eventually cleared up, but it didn't stop the problem of the growth pressing on her jugular. Um, I actually managed to get some sleep during that time, and lying on the floor, I mean. And my aunt came over, and they were talking together in the room, and I remember hearing her phone ring, and I didn't pay attention to it because I was trying to do something on my phone at the time, so I wasn't paying attention. It turns out it was my pastor who had called to ask my mom what she wanted to eat. He said that he had just felt the the need to do that all of a sudden, and so my mom told him what she wanted to eat. And sorry, So my mom told him what she wanted to eat, and then he said he'll be sending over some woman from the church in about an hour with what she requested. And so we the woman came. They brought what she wanted, um, and they talked with her. They prayed with her, and then they left. They didn't stay for more than 5 minutes, probably because they were busy. It was a weekday, so they probably had stuff to do, right? And um, then my aunt left, and it was just me and my mom, usually for most of the day. I don't think anything particularly significant happened until the night when my mother, sorry, when my younger sister and my dad came home, and it was around 11 o'clock, right? And I was here on the computer talking to my best friend, and um, I was starting to get hungry when my mom suddenly called for me. So I went to see what was going on. And, oh, wait, no, hang on. That wasn't it. She was making loud noises. By the way, my dad sleeps in the same bed as she does, right? So I was concerned a little bit, wondering if she would need my help with something because uh, I sometimes had to, she would call me to bring the things responsible for brushing her teeth. If she wanted to vomit, I had to bring her a container, stuff like that. I was taking care of a sick person, having to literally spoon feed her food. Uh, So she was making loud noises, and it turns out that she was in pain, like a lot of pain. She was crying out with pain, saying that her stomach was hurting her really, really badly. And she called me and she said, um, "Go get your sister." And so my sister was in our room on her laptop, and I was like, "Mom's calling for you. She says she wants you to pray, right?" And my mom has a really big family. She's one of six daughters, and she also has two brothers, right? And one of her sisters is a pastor, and this particular pastor sister has two sons. This is important to the story, right? And whenever my mom felt like she couldn't breathe, or she was having like a, she was claustrophobic, so sometimes she would feel like the walls were closing in, and she would call her pastor sister, and then they would pray, and she would feel better. So when my sister came into the room, she was like, "Do you want me to call pastor sister?" And my mom was like, "Yes." So they started that voice call, and one of her other sisters joined the voice call while that was going on, and they all were praying, and my mom was crying out in pain because I don't. We don't know what happened. By the way, we never got a significant conclusion. Also, at this point, she was complaining of being too hot, despite the fact that her skin was practically ice cold. She was constantly asking us to wipe in an icy cloth on her skin because she insisted that she was too hot, and she was sweating, but she wasn't. She was feeling hot from the inside out, basically. So the passing of the cloth on her skin wasn't really helping her all that much. And um, while the praying was going on, I'm guessing one of the pastor sister's sons heard what was going on and came to investigate. Now, I don't I don't know if he worked as a nurse, or he if or if he was a paramedic or anything. But when he heard how my mom was breathing, he was like, "Call the ambulance and have them carry her to the hospital, because that sounds like her brain is not getting enough oxygen," right? So we followed his advice. We called the ambulance. Um, and think about it, is because my mom could not get up on her own. They had to put her on a strong sheet and carry her down the front stairs to the stretcher, and then they put the stretcher in the ambulance and they carried her away. My younger sister went followed the ambulance with her car. Now you're probably wondering, wait a minute, isn't one of your aunts living really close by to you? Yeah, it was half 11 at night. I tried calling her through her front door. She didn't wake up, and to this day she still blames herself for it, for being in such a deep sleep that she didn't hear anything. Um, so my dad and we came back inside, and you want to know something messed up? While my mom was groaning in pain and stuff, and they were praying, I decided that I was hungry and I decided to make myself some cereal. I had zero empathy for this entire situation, guys. I don't even understand how people can feel about this, you know? And during that entire time, practically, I was in communication with my best friend. I was like, could you pray for my mom, because um, while pastor's sister and my sister were praying, he was like, do you want my brother to pray for her as well? And I was like, yeah. And then um, I was like, oh, we gotta go. I'll have to talk to you later. My sister called my dad from the hospital and said that her pulse was very weak and her heart had already failed once. And my dad decided, okay, let's get ready and let's go to the hospital. So we got ready, went to the hospital, and they had put her in the COVID suspected patients area. So both of us couldn't walk down to talk to my sister, who we could just barely see on the outskirts of the entrance of the hospital. And so my dad went up to talk to her, and then he came back and he told me what was going on. And he said that they have her on drips and the usual things, and she's not responding to any resuscitation that they're trying to do. And when they tried to give her CPR, her ribs started to cave in, so they couldn't. They asked my dad if they could do more aggressive resuscitation because they felt when her ribs were starting to give in. And my dad was like, go ahead, because I have a feeling she's not going to make it. Either her ribs puncture her lung and she dies that way, or it definitely sounded like she was going to die based on what we were told. And then my dad went back to talk to my sister because he saw the doctor come out, and then he called me over and he met me halfway and he hugged me, and I was like, I didn't say anything this entire time, by the way, and I was like, why is he hugging me? And then he said, she's gone. And I kid you not, in my brain I went, oh, and my heart gave a thump, and that was the extent of my body's response to that message. What is wrong with me? I know I'm asking a legitimate question, because you guys, you probably heard me say this hundreds, okay, well, not hundreds, several times before, but I'm pretty sure I'm somewhere on the autism spectrum based on the way that I normally act, based on the way that I think, and now the obvious lack of empathy for this entire situation. I tried to stay as quiet as possible during everything because I had a feeling that if I said anything, it would paint me as a bad person. I was relieved that I didn't have to deal with it anymore. Guys, I usually would go to sleep at around 10 o'clock and wake up at around maybe 9 o'clock in the morning. I was barely getting any sleep at all because my mother had to get up at all hours of the night to take medication. And then on top of that, it was like maybe like 1 o'clock in the morning that she would need to take medication. And then my dad goes to work at around half 3. So it didn't make any sense to go back into bed to sleep. So I would have to stay up sometimes. I think this whole thing of needing to get up at like 1 o'clock persisted for like 2 weeks straight. It got to the point where I was learning her medication, and my dad and my sister would ask me which ones that she needed to take. The amount of money my dad was spending on medication was horrendous. And I'm glad that he no longer has that financial burden on him, because, again, we're still paying for the light and water bills at our old house, guys. And on top of that, we have to pay rent. And I'm not involved in any of this, and yet I know it. I Okay, well, I may know why he doesn't want me to get a job, but still, I feel like I should be contributing something. But he was like, no. Um, Anyway, so after he told me what was going on, I went and sat down to my sister, who was calling everyone that she knew, and telling them that our mother had just passed away. And she was crying, and I was like very quiet and didn't say a single thing. And then the nurse came out and she was like, "You guys want to see the body?" And then my dad and my dad said yes. So we went to see the body, and they touched her, but I didn't. And then they commented on her skin. They said that it's so ironic that all the time she was so cold, and now when she's gone, she's actually warm again. Although, that could be because we weren't wiping her down like every 10 minutes with a wet cloth. And, oh, by the way, the apartment is air conditioned, so she had it blasting the entire time. Uh, um, and then after that, after well, we looked at the body and stuff, we started discussing how we were going to get funeral stuff done and how to register a death. And then my sister's boss, who is a doctor, came in and she started explaining a couple of things. And she said, if you guys want to request it, you can ask for an autopsy to see what had killed her, right? Um, and she said that because it's they don't suspect foul play, we could choose not to do the autopsy. But if they suspected that something was wrong, that she had been killed by someone, they would do the autopsy without your consent, nonetheless, basically. But we had the option to, and my dad eventually said no because it would prolong the funeral. Basically, he wanted to get this done as quickly as possible. So I'm still in complete. I don't understand what happened. She started complaining of pain, and then half an hour later she was dead. Apparently, stage 4 cancer is that aggressive. I didn't know this, but uh, it happened. I Anyway, um, so her boss, my sister's boss, sat down beside us, and she was talking about the types of procedures that they have for funeral services and whatnot. By the way, practically, I think our pastor took care of most of the funeral stuff because my mom was his worship leader on the platform, and so she was greatly respected by my pastor. And not to mention, he was a member of the church, and she was personally close to him, right? So he saw about all of that, and Um, let me see. What next can I talk about? Maybe the funeral itself. My dad said what my pastor told my dad that he wanted my dad to be up on the platform playing the bass guitar because he wanted him to have something to focus on rather than, you know, feeling too sad or something. I don't know. His words, not mine. He wanted my dad to have something to focus on. So on the day of the funeral, my dad was up there on the stage, um, playing the bass, and um, I didn't know about this until about a week and a half later. That my dad heard people talking about how they thought it was insensitive that my dad was playing guitar when he should have been bawling, rolling on the floor, crying for his wife. And they thought that it was rude that my younger sister and I were also not doing the same thing. Okay, for me, have you guys ever heard me cry? Have you ever seen? Okay, well, guys probably never see me cry, but I only ever cry out of frustration when I know that I can't change the situation. For instance, I remember one time I cried out of frustration. I We were living in our old place. By the way, that property is ours. It was literally my dad's inheritance. So it's a privately owned piece of land, right? Um, I had gone up the hill that we live on to a mini mart, I guess you could call it, a little grocery shop, right? Family owned, and to get some items. And when I came back home, my mom asked me for something that she had actually sent me to get. And I was like, can we just do this another time? And she was like, no, I kind of need it now. And that was when I cried out of frustration because that meant that I would have to walk back up the hill in the heat again when I just wanted to go and lie down and relax. That was a situation I could not change. I ended up doing it anyway because she needed it, but ugh. You know what I mean? Um, as for how the rest of my family took it, like her immediate family, her sisters, they um they didn't they took it well, I'd say. Um, but my aunt who lives next to us, you know, the one who would come over every day to talk to my mom and cook her food, she was I didn't hear this, but my dad was standing the closest to her while we were viewing the body, and apparently my aunt uh, leaned her forehead against my dead mother's body and was whispering to God to bring her sister back. And then after the fact, my mom had two phones, right? And one of them had WhatsApp. And my aunt continued to message my mother's phone several days after the funeral. How do I know this? Because I was going through my mom's phone when her WhatsApp went off. And it was my aunt who literally lives next door. She was like, why didn't you call me? I'm like, guys, how, you know, how? I didn't mention, right? There's something wrong with this specific aunt. Oh, by the way, yeah, she is the exact same aunt that told me that I shouldn't be bringing a backpack to church. How else am I gonna carry on my books? You know. Anyway, all of these developments was said in my, okay, well, not all of them. but the people in my Discord server did know when my mom passed. So um, they get updates. It's easier to type a message and send it in the chat than have to record my voice, send it to my other phone. By the way, this is literally how this works. I have two phones. I have a small, slow white phone and a newer, faster black phone. I record on my white phone because it has more space. Then I send the recording over Bluetooth, by the way, to my black phone. Then I put the recording in Google Drive because I have the Google Drive app on my black phone, and then I take it out of the Google Drive on my computer and I put it in my editing program, and I find some clips of various games I've played. I wanted to say Genshin, but that's not entirely true. I try to make it a little more varied sometimes. Like I might get some Elsword, some Pokemon, some Harvest Moon, make it a little spicy, right? Gosh, this is 36 minutes long. Are you guys still listening? Oh my gosh. um, because my mother had been sick for so long, I had been taking care of the kitchen and seeing about my dad for an extensive period of time. So when she passed, it wasn't a huge deal for me to continue doing what I've been doing the entire time, except for actually being able to enjoy my games when I sit down to play it. I could not listen to music. I couldn't voice chat with people. I couldn't immerse myself in anything that I was doing because my mother could call me at literally any point in time. No matter the time of the night, we had to sleep with our doors open just in case she needed to call me. My dad actually got frustrated with her at that point. He's like, "I'm laying right next to you. Why are you calling her? Do you if you need food or something, tell me and I'll get up and get it." And he started actually taking some burdens off of my shoulders by doing that. By the way, um, and then he stopped asking for breakfast before he left for work. But unfortunately, by that point, my body had been ingrained with the idea that I needed to stay up. So it definitely took some time after her funeral for my sleep schedule to go back to normal, and then I started being able to dream again. By the way, I stopped dreaming the entire time that entire situation was going on. My body was so stressed. Oh my gosh. If you don't know the extent of the kind of stress that I went through, you know, okay, well, you don't know. You know what I mean. So those are the first two major things that have happened. We moved, and my mom passed away. And the third thing is that this one isn't quite as important, nor is it as significant as the other two, but it's still pretty interesting. My dad got ordinated as a pastor in the church that he goes to. Now, back in the day, my entire family went to the same church, which is why my pastor knew that my dad could play the bass because he was on the platform back in the day. But then my dad fell out with my pastor, and my pastor said, "This is not behavior befitting of a Christian. You need to get off the platform." And my dad agreed, and then he literally stopped coming to church and started going to another church. And because of the teachings that my pastor had, teach over the years, because he had so much more knowledge than the people in the church that he's not going to, they considered him to be more learned than everyone there. And I kid you not, if my mother had found out that my father got ordained as a pastor, she would be against that decision really, really hard. Now, the reason I know this is because I used to listen to the types of things that she would say to her friends over the phone. I don't know if you know old people. My mother was 61, by the way. When they talk on the phone, they talk real hard. And she would say that she has a perfect husband, but his um, his unforgiveness towards my pastor is not something that should be emulated in a Christian, right? There was an incident that happened, and my dad seemingly has never forgiven my pastor for, or the men of the church, I think, for not responding to him. Uh, and for someone like that to be a pastor, leading a leading people, my mother was always against the idea. She said that the last time, okay, well, not the last time, but the one of the significant points in my head that I can remember is that she said that they had asked him to preach at their church. This was like about 2 years before all of this happened. And my dad did no research for himself. He literally asked my mom all the questions and put together a thing and then presented that. And they praised him for it. I heard her complaining to her friend on the phone about it. Guys. So this is getting long. Oh my god. Um I don't need your condolences. I don't need your pity. I know some of you might think, okay, I think probably at this point you if you've listened this far, you probably know I'm not telling you guys for any pity points or anything like that, right? If you want to say that you're sorry that my mom passed, you can go ahead. Um, oh, by the way, I'm 28, and I guess that's not very old, but I feel like we can survive without her. We've done no cooking, by the way, since my mom passed. Um, we've literally been overflowing with food from people. My dad's office was sending lunches for like about a week, to the point where we actually had to start throwing away food because we couldn't eat it all. Our appetites kind of lessened because one, we weren't having to. Honestly, I don't know. Also, my mom always used to make extra food because we had cats who would eat. Most of the time, they wanted rice and bread and stuff, so we always needed to keep abreast of those sorts of materials in our house. We have way too many canned foods now, and I'm fairly certain we ain't gonna do any of them with them. You know what I mean? Um, we're doing okay. Um, my dad and my younger sister, after the initial incident where she was calling people and stuff, I haven't seen her cry. And my dad said that if he cries behind closed doors and comes out looking fine, that's his concern and not anyone else's. I've not cried at all. I haven't cried for anything at all since my mom passed. Actually, you know what? I actually almost cried out of frustration. Um, about a week before she passed away, my aunt came into um, our house and heard that we were going to have guests in our living room and decided that our kitchen needed rearranging. And I don't know, again, being on the autism spectrum, I have a specific way I set up everything. And again, up until after my mom got sick, I was the one taking care of the kitchen, right? So I needed to know where everything was. And seeing her move things around, I didn't tell her anything, by the way, because she's an adult. You know, it would be considered rude or whatever. Um, after I told her that she didn't need to do that, and she's like, "Do you want people to come in and see your place looking dirty?" And I was like, "You have the kitchen looking like no one has ever used it ever," kind of way. Actually slammed my bedroom door on her face because I was so mad. I'm feeling the frustration bubbling up just from that memory. I don't like her touching my things. Those things in the kitchen I put there for a reason so that I could get them whenever someone asks for something. I'll know exactly where to go to get them. You know what I mean? It's like a stranger walking into your room and deciding that your bed needs to be on the on the other side of the room, despite the fact that you have it against the wall for a reason. I went to my mom at that point. I didn't know what else to do because I figured she would not stop. And I lay down behind her and some tears came out, but I didn't actually fully cry. And I was like, she was like, "Is something wrong?" Because I never did this before. I literally never went on her bed while she was there before. Look, it's raining now. And um, when I told her that my aunt, her sister, was rearranging the kitchen and now nothing was in the place, she was taking out all the fancy glasses and putting them all over. I felt like she was putting up an elaborate lie in our house, and that is not how we do things in our house, which she never got, by the way. And then my mom called her sister in, and she was like, "I only give you permission to wipe down the couches." By the way, we had literally just gotten a new set of couch. Well, not new, but new in the house. We had actually got it from a church member who said, "Oh, you guys need chairs? Okay, I have a 2 couch set and some a table and some chairs if you guys want them, right?" So we got them the night before, and she was when my aunt came in, she was like, "If you're having guests, we need to wipe down the couches." And I was like, "We don't know when these people are going to arrive. Why are you wiping something down that people have to sit on with something wet?" You know what I mean? There was absolutely no time we knew how long it's going to take to dry. I'm sorry, my throat is starting to hurt. Whenever I raise my voice, this happens, by the way. So sorry. Um, so my mom called her sister in and she's like, "I only give you permission to wipe down the couches. What are you doing in the kitchen?" And she was like, "My daughter gets offended very easily." And I'm like, I didn't say anything, but I was like, oh okay. um, and so when she was given a stern talking to, my aunt left, and I put everything back the way I wanted it to be, and I put away all of my mom's fancy glasses and stuff because I felt like they shouldn't be outside. Who needs to see fancy glasses? You know what I mean? They're literally just coming here to talk to my mom a little bit, pray with her, and that's it. They're not gonna look around and care about the state of the house. They know that there's practically only one person taking care of the house at that point, and that was me being home all the time. Oh, my throat. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't believe I talked for almost 15 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I need to stop. Um, if you guys want to ask me questions, you could go ahead and leave them in the comments, or you could find my Discord server if you want. It's pretty dead, but I mean, I post updates. Oh, another thing really quickly is that I post Discord only videos. So some of them, some of the people who care about watching my Discord only content would have known about certain situations because sometimes I make Discord only rants. So yay. Uh, okay, so that's all I wanted to say. Um, I have a good day slash night. I hope you guys hydrate properly. And we're we as a family are doing fine. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, so sayonara. Oh, sorry. I mean, jane.